Namaskar friends, welcome to the channel JIB and CIB Made Simple. In this particular video, we are going to cover our IIBF MSME memory based certification examination memory based question and answer for the examination which was held on 14th March 2026. So in this particular channel, I have created a playlist in which I have added all the previous memory based question, and this will help you in the upcoming examination. So let's get started with our very first question that was asked in the examination. It is regarding ATUFS, Amended Technology Upgradation Fund Scheme. So this is a scheme for the Ministry of Textile. So the question is with respect to ATUFS, which of the following statement accurately reflect the capital investment subsidy structure for an individual entity? So with respect to this ATUFS, you have to tell me that there are four statements which I have provided, and you have to tell that which one is the correct reflect the capital subsidy investment subsidy structure. So option they have given, a uniform 10% subsidy is provided across all the textile segment to ensure parity in technological growth. B says that garmenting and technical textile segment are eligible for 15% subsidy capped at 30 crore, while weaving and processing segment receive a 10% subsidy. C says the scheme provide interest reimbursement on term loan specifically for spinning sector to reduce raw material cost. D says entities can claim a one-time 50% capital subsidy on the installation of a second-hand imported machinery to promote rapid industrialization. So these are the four options that they have provided, and this question is with respect to the ATUFS, Amended Technology Upgradation Funded Scheme. So first of all, let me explain what this scheme is all about. So please understand that this ATUFS, right, this is a government scheme under the Ministry of Textile, right, that give financial support to the textile unit. It give financial support to the textile units, right, when they buy new modern machinery. So this textile unit, when they buy new and modern machinery, right, so they receive financial support, but the support is not the same for every segment, right? It is not the same for every segment. Basically the scheme give more subsidy. The scheme give more subsidy to the sector that create more values, more subsidies to the sector that create more values and more job. So under ATUFS, there's something called garmenting and technical textile. Garmenting and technical textile. So basically these are high value and high employment generating sector. High value and high employment generating sector, they get 15% capital investment subsidy. 15% capital investment subsidy. Who get? Garmenting and textile unit get. Technical textile. With a maximum limit of how much? 30 crore. 30 crore is the maximum limit. Then other segment like weaving, processing, jute. Second case we have is the weaving, processing, jute, silk, handloom. So they get 10% CIS, capital investment subsidy, and this is capped at 20 crore. So if you look at the option number A says that uniform 10% subsidy for all the textile segment. No, that's wrong. Right, but ATUFS is not uniform, right? It prioritizes certain segment with higher incentive. Just now, it does not provide equal across all the textile segment. That's wrong. A is wrong. What about option B? So option B, yes, I think it is correct. Yes, it is that garmenting and textile segment are eligible for 15% subsidy and capped at 30 crore exactly. And other segment like weaving and processing receive a 10% subsidy. 10% CIS, or we call it capital investment subsidy, capped at 20 crore exactly. B is correct. What about C? C says that the scheme provide interest reimbursement on term loan. See, it talks about interest reimbursement for spinning, but this interest subsidy on spinning, this was the part of the older TUFS scheme. This is not the part of the ATUFS. ATUFS only focus on what? ATUFS only focus on CIS. That is the main focus of ATUFS. The full form I already told you. That is, Amended Technology Upgraded. So if the question was regarding TUFS, then the option C would have been correct. But this question is pertains to ATUFS, amended. So in the amended, it's only focus on CIS. It does not focus on, spinning sectors. So option number C is wrong. What about D? D says that entities can claim one times 50% capital subsidy on the installation of second-hand imported machinery. This says that you get a subsidy of second-hand imported machinery. But remember, ATUFS clearly says that only brand new. Again, I am repeating. This is the very important thing. Only brand new and benchmark machine, right? They are eligible. So option D is also not correct. So what we learn from this discussion is that, so there is a memory trick I can provide you so that you can remember the limits. So what is the memory trick? Just remember it. 1530 for garments, 1530 for garments, 1020 for others, right? So what does it mean? 1530, it simply means garmenting plus textile, technical textile, right? 15% CIS and 30 crore cap, that's called 1513. And then on the other hand, for weaving plus processing, plus other, in that case we have 10% CIS, or we call it 20 crore cap. Fine. So just remember this thing, higher value, higher subsidy. You can see now 30, 1530 and 1020. So higher the value, higher the subsidy, right? So in this case 30 crore cap, right? So 15% CIS, 20 crore cap, 10% CIS. So what we learn from this discussion is that ATUFS support the modernization through capital investment subsidy scheme. For garmenting and technical textile, 15% subsidy and maximum cap is 30 crore. And for weaving and processing segment, 10% subsidy and cap is 20 crore. Only brand new machinery is eligible and scheme is credit linked. You must take a term loan, then only you get this subsidy, and it run on the ITUFS portal. So you must also note it down where it run on the ITUFS portal, right? And the aim is zero defect, zero effect. This is the aim. Zero defect, zero effect. The same thing has been mentioned here also. So as you can see, this kind of PDF will help you revise the entire content in very short amount of time. And such kind of 10 to 11 PDF I have created since the February 2025 examination. So you can check out our description of the course. In our course, you get such kind of PDF for which help you go through the important questions and help you revise the important content. So zero defect, zero effect means high quality, low environmental impact, conducted through the ITUFS portal for transparency. And yes, it is a credit link subsidy. Listening to our next question, let me introduce you to our certificate course on MSME. So the question and answer session that we are seeing right now is a part and parcel of this our course. You can see I have already added 8 previous year question file starting from the March 2025, and this PDF will also be added. So this will help you. This entire PDF will help you to see the important parts from where question have appeared in the recent examination. Not only that, you get unit wise theory and MCQ PDF as per the module wise syllabus prescribed by IABF. So it has been categorized into 6 modules. Inside each module you get different types of units. Inside each unit folder you get theory PDF and MCQs PDF. All these PDFs are downloadable. You can access it on the mobile as well as on the PC, and you can go through the entire MCQs. There are almost 1000 plus MCQs in the entire course. In addition to that, for quick revision session, I have added quick revision PDF which help you revise module wise important content in very short span of time. So to get access to this course, you can check out the link in the description section, or you can WhatsApp me on the number. So friends, question number 2 of today's session, let's have a look. So this question is about what is the import of why is the import of Saudi yarn or mutilated rag from Italy to Ludhiana important for circular economy? And what is the key regulatory requirement for importing it into India? Exactly same question was asked. In the context of global textile value chain, why is the import of Saudi yarn or mutilated rag from European hub like Italy to Ludhiana considered a critical component of the circular economy? And what is the primary regulatory requirement? So 4 options I have provided. Option number A, it allows for the direct resale of premium Italian designer wear in Indian retail market, requiring a luxury good import license. B says it facilitates the recycling of post-consumer textile waste into affordable woolen product, requires that the import wool be mutilated. Option C, it focuses on the extraction of raw silk fiber from the Italian synthetic blend, requiring a phytosanitary certificate for all the synthetic polymer. Option D, it is primarily used for the production of high tenacity industrial filter requiring a technical textile grade certification from the Italian Ministry of Commerce. Very good question. So why is this import is important for the circular economy? So let's understand the entire concept with a simple story. So Italy, right? You know Italy, especially a region in Italy called Prato, right? So this is famous worldwide for recycling the old cloth, right? This is famous worldwide for old cloth recycling, right? And textile waste, old cloth recycling, and textile waste. So these old garments are collected, sorted, cleaned, and converted into loose fiber. So what happened? These old garments, first of all, they are collected. Not only they are collected, they are also sorted, selected, sorted, and cleaned, and finally they are converted into loose fiber. So this fiber is called, this loose fiber is what we call, soddy wool. Soddy wool. And in India, especially Ludhiana, right? India in Ludhiana, they import such soddy wool. They import it. Why? Because Ludhiana is a major hub for making affordable woolen product. Ludhiana is a major hub for making affordable woolen product, like blankets, right? Sweaters, right? Low cost blazers and warm cloth for the masses. So the whole cycle is a perfect example of a kind of economy that we call the circular economy. This is the perfect example of circular economy. So what happened? It means that instead of throwing textile waste into landfill, it is recycled. Yes, that is called circular economy. So we did not throw the waste to the land. We recycle it. It is further shipped, and then it is reused, and then it is turned into new product, right? And then it is sold at an affordable rate. So what about the regulatory? So the one part we have answered right now. What about the regulatory rule? Yes, see, India has a very strict, so the regulatory conditions say that these rags or these garments, they must be mutilated. They must be mutilated. Mutilated means physically cut, physically torn, and physically damaged. That's called mutilated. Why? To make sure that nobody illegally resell wearable foreign cloth in India without paying high import duty. So when the cloth are already torn, they cannot be worn. So they can only be used as a raw material for pulling the fiber. So if you look at the option they have provided, if you look at the option number 8, it says that it allows for the direct resale of premium Italian designer wear in Indian retail market, requires a luxury good import license. No premium luxury cloth, right, are being imported. This is a textile waste which is being imported, not Italian branded garment. What about option B? It facilitates the recycling of post-consumer textile waste into affordable woolen product. Exactly. It required that imported wool or rag be mutilated. Correct. B is the correct one. What about option C? It says that it focuses on extraction of raw silk fiber from Italian synthetic blend. It required psychosanitary certificate. See, when I talk about this soddy, just we have discussed that this soddy has nothing to do with the silk extraction. It has nothing to do with the silk extraction or synthetic fiber. It has nothing to do with these things, right? It is mainly recycled wool or cotton waste. So C is also wrong. What about option D? It is primarily used for production of high tenacity industrial filter. So soddy is not used for industrial filter. It is used for woolen clothing. Please understand this soddy. It is used for what? It is used for woolen cloth, and no such Italian technical textile certificate is required. So D is also wrong, right? So what is the correct answer? B. So the memory trick, let me tell you the memory trick. In every question I tell you the memory trick so that you can remember it for the lifelong. So you can remember it like this: cut, then recycle, cut, then recycle, and then spin. So when I say this cut means what? Mutilated rags. Cut means mutilated rags. This is required by Indian custom, right? Mutilated rag. Recycle means what? Recycle means Italian plateau. Italian plateau, right? So old cloth become fiber. So cut, mutilated rag is required by Indian custom, and that is sent to the Italian custom, and this recycling is done by the Italian plateau, and spin is done in the Ludhiana. Fiber become cheap woolen, right? Cheap woolen. So remember, if it is not cut, it cannot come in. If it is cut, it become yarn. So that so some keyword which we have discussed is the circular economy. So waste become resource. Italy Prato send recycled fiber to Ludhiana. Ludhiana is a global hub for this Saudi yard and affordable woolen. Right. So I hope option concept is crystal clear. Now the next question we have is a very good question, very conceptual question. Let's have a look. So as per the RBI, Reserve Bank of India guideline on the resolution framework, it's all about the resolution framework. So as per this RBI guideline on resolution framework, which of the following best describe the eligibility? And the question is, which of the following best describe the eligibility and classification impact of restructuring an asset? Option A, a loan can only be restructured only once it has reached the loss asset stage to maximize recovery for the bank. Restructuring is most effective when the asset is standard or substandard. However, a standard asset will typically downgraded to substandard upon restructuring. Option C, doubtful assets are ineligible for restructuring and must be immediately written off from the bank book. Option D, restructuring a substandard asset automatically upgrades its status to a standard as soon as the new repayment agreement is signed. So very good question. Let's break it down very clearly. So what is the meaning of restructuring? First of all, let's clear that. Right. So basically, restructuring means the bank changes the repayment term. Right. Restructuring means what bank is doing? Bank is changing the repayment term. Right. Maybe more time they are giving. Maybe they are reducing the EMI. Or maybe, changing interest rate. Interest rate may change. Fine. So because, borrower is facing temporary financial difficulty. Right. So that is called restructuring. So now the important part is that, RBI law restructuring for the loan that are standard, that are substandard, and that are, doubtful. So RBI law restructuring for all these kinds of loan. But restructuring work best. When the loan is still standard or just recently slip into substandard. Why? The key rule is that suppose if a standard asset, or we can say a good loan is restructured. Suppose a standard asset is restructured, right? What happened? It normally get downgraded. To what? It normally get downgraded to substandard, right? That is the point. So if a standard asset is restructured, it get downgraded to substandard asset, right? So why does RBI do this? Yes, you may ask me question, sir, why do RBI do this? Because, to ensure bank don't misuse restructuring to hide NPA, right? So RBI, so basically the rule is that if standard asset is restructured, it will get normally downgraded to substandard asset. And so why RBI do it? So because to ensure that bank don't misuse restructuring to hide NPA. So bank may misuse restructuring to hide NPA. Bank should not do that. So the downgrade forces the bank to make higher provision and to stay cautious. So this kind of so that's why downgrading, right? So downgrading, it forces the bank to make higher provision. So once the standard account slip to substandard, now they have to make higher provision, as you know it very well. So downgrading the account means higher provision has to be made and stay cautious, right? So that's why this downgrading is done. Otherwise, what bank will do? Bank will restructure the loan to hide the NPA, right? So what are the options that they have provided? So if you look at the option number A, it says that loan can only be restructured once it has reached the loss asset. No, that's wrong. Loss asset has nothing to do with that, right? Restructuring is not done for loss asset. A loss asset is basically worthless, right? So no recovery is expected for the loss asset. So so restructuring make no sense to the case of loss asset. So option number A is wrong. What about option number B? B says that it is most effective when the when the asset is standard or substandard. Yes, correct. B is the correct one, right? What about C? C says doubtful asset are ineligible for restructuring. So doubtful asset can be restructured. They have high provisioning requirement, but RBI has not banned restructuring for them. It says that doubtful asset are ineligible for restructuring. That's the wrong word, because doubtful asset can be restructured. What D says? D says that restructuring a substandard asset does not upgrade it to standard. Yes, it must first perform satisfactorily for at least 1 year. So that particular account is checked, is monitored for 1 year continuously. If it performs satisfactorily, right, in that case, it becomes standard again. It becomes standard account again. So the memory trick, let me tell you a memory trick here, that structured, it means a standard down. So whenever you structure, it means standard down. So whenever you restructure a standard loan, it goes down to one grade to substandard, right? So what happened, because of restructuring, just remember, restructuring, risk is increased, and when risk is increased, that's why downgrading is done. Fine. So what we learned, that restructuring means change in the repayment term to help a stressed borrower. And what are the eligible state for restructuring? It can be done at substandard, standard, and doubtful, but best done early. And substandard stays substandard after restructuring, upgrade only after 1 year of good performance, and loss asset are not candidate for restructuring. That's the point we have discussed so far, and this is a very good conceptual question regarding the restructuring, and same was asked in the previous examination. So this is the condition that we must keep in the mind. If the asset side is standard, criteria no overdue or overdue less than 90 days, restructuring potential is high, prevent NPA but cause a downgrade. If substandard means NPA less than to 12 months, so moderate, restructuring potential is moderate, focus on rehabilitation. Doubtful, restructuring potential is low, and loss has no restructuring potential. So as you can see, as we move from a standard to the loss asset, restructuring potential is decreasing time by time. Now question number 5 of today's session, and rehabilitation. Which of the following scenario correctly categorize the cause of industrial sickness into internal and external factor? Option they have provided. Internal means sudden change in government import and export policy. External means frequent breakdown due to obsolete machine. Option B says internal means poor financial management and diversion of fund. External means global recession leading to collapse in product demand. C says internal means shortage of raw material due to a nationwide strike. And external means ineffective marketing strategy and weak distribution network. And D says internal means increase in excise duty by Ministry of Finance. And external means dispute between the board of director and promoter. Very good question. So basically, let's understand it in the simplest way possible. So industry can become sick. Yes, that is what the question is all about. It's talking about the cause of the industrial sickness, right? So it very well that industry can become sick. Fine. So means that they fail to operate profitably. So what is the meaning of this sickness? Sickness means they are no longer profitable. Non-profitable. Right. So they can become sick for two reasons. The first reason is called internal. The first reason is internal cause. So this happen inside the company and under the management control. So these reasons are under the management control. Like suppose someone has taken the bad decision. So decision they have not taken correctly. Or suppose planning is very weak. Planning is weak. Or suppose money mismanagement. Suppose money mismanagement happen. Or suppose marketing is very poor. Marketing is poor. Or obsolete machinery. So all these are internal causes. And then also in addition to the internal cause, we also have some external cause, right? So what are external cause? So this happen outside the company, and this is not under the control of management. Like suppose we have the global recession. Yes, this global recession can be an example. Or suppose government policy change. Suppose there is a change in policy, or natural disaster. Fine, inflation is there, a strike is there. So these are the external causes: recession, policy change, disaster, inflation. So now let's look at the option that they have provided. Option number A says that internal. This talk about government policy change is external. See, when I say this sudden change in the government policy, import export policy, this is not an internal. This is an external point, right? And obsolete machinery, this is internal, right? Not an external. So this option A is wrong. What about C? It says that shortage of raw material due to nationwide strike as internal. No. Nationwide strike is an external factor, and ineffective marketing strategy in internal factor. So C is also wrong. What about D? It says that increase in excise duty by the Ministry of Finance. So this is an external. So Ministry of Finance has increased the excise duty. This is an external cause. And dispute between board of directors. This is an internal cause. So D is also wrong. So what is the correct answer? Yes, B is the correct answer, and this is what we are looking for. If you look at the option number B, it says that poor financial management and diversion of fund. Yes, these two accounts toward the internal. And global recession, it is an external cause. This comes from the world economy. So option B correctly matches internal versus external factor. So B is the correct answer to this question. So there is a memory trick. You can use it to remember. What is the memory trick? Let me explain. The memory trick is, inside which means mistakes, and outside it means market. Please understand. So inside the company, management mistake, internal. Outside the company, market policy, external. Right, that's the point. So internal causes like management control, like poor planning, diversion of fund, overstaffing, technical operational problem, weak marketing, bad project appraisal. And external cause, I told you, beyond company control. Fine. So please remember it, very, very important aspect. Now let's see the next question that we have. So this particular table, correctly differentiate between the internal cause and external cause. Look, like internal, like, poor project appraisal, technical deficiency, overstaffing, diversion of fund, lack of quality control. So yes, they are controllable. They require management change. While external factor include power shortage, change in technology, infrastructure, they are uncontrollable. Now let's have a look at the next question. Next question that we have. So what it is all about, a manufacturing unit is there. They are facing a persistent power supply shortage due to a statewide grid failure and raw material shortage caused by unexpected traditional international trade embargo. So in the context of industrial sickness, how are these factors classified and what is the primary? So I think this thing we have discussed already. So let me skip this particular question. Internal, external classification already we have done. Now let's switch our focus to the next question regarding the credit appraisal. Very good question. So they are asking you, in the case of credit appraisal, a significantly high asset turnover ratio compared to industry average most likely indicate which are the following scenario. So this question pertains to high asset turnover ratio. What does it indicate? So that's what the question is asking. Option they have provided, that company has a massive amount of idle cash and non-productive fixed asset. Option number B says that the company is over trading, means that it is generating. So it says that company is over trading. It means it is generating high sale volume with a very thin asset base, potentially leading to liquidity crunch. C says that company has a very poor sale performance and is unable to utilize its inventory effectively. And D says that company is under trading, suggesting that the management is conservative and carry excessive safety stocks. So what do you think? So high asset turnover ratio indicate which kind of which option? That's the question. So friends, let's understand this in the simple word. What this asset turnover ratio is all about. So it tells us how efficiently a company uses its asset. How efficiently the company uses its asset to generate sale. So efficiency. This efficiency is what asset turnover ratio tells you. What is the formula? The formula for asset turnover ratio is net sale, which is our output, divided by average total asset. Net set average total asset means how efficiently company is using its asset to generate the sale. That is what asset turnover ratio is all about. Now this ratio is much higher than the industry average. What does it mean? Let me explain. So suppose our asset turnover ratio is much higher than the average of industry. So it means that company is generating very high sale using very few asset. So it simply means high sale using few asset. High sale is being generated using few asset, right? So at first this may sound amazing, but when the ratio become too high, it usually signal over trading. At first company is getting high sale using few asset. That is what it means. At first so you can remember it like this. Too high, it means too thin. Too high means too thin. So what I mean to say, if the asset turnover ratio become too high, the company is running too thin. The company is running too thin on what? Too thin on asset, right? So remember, thin base plus high sale, thin base plus high sale, there is a risk of over trading, right? Thin base plus high sale, then there is a risk of over trading. Or shorter, we can also write it shorter, that high turnover, high risk, right? So DER can be written like this: total long-term debt upon total net worth. Total long-term debt upon total net worth, that's called TNW. Now let's compute each part step by step. How to compute the total tangible net worth? Sorry, in the numerator we have total long-term debt upon tangible net worth, not total net worth. Actually it is tangible net worth. Now the main part is to computation of this tangible net worth. So how to compute this tangible net worth? TNW. So TNW means, you know, equity share capital plus reserves and surplus plus unsecured loan from promoter minus revaluation reserve. This is how we compute the TNW, right? So now let's apply the number here. So how much equity they have given here, you can see. So anything inflated has not to be taken, right? So anything inflated, anything not real, this has not to be taken, right? So that's why we have subtracted the revaluation reserve, right? And promoter non-withdrawable unsecured loan in. So add reserve, add promoter support minus revaluation, right? This is the point that we'll keep in the mind. So friends, we have some more question available which I have collected from the aspirant who have given the examination. We have added in our previous year question paper PDF.